So it's a wrap for the combine down in Indy, and I think everybody's doing their breakdowns on who made big splashes, stock is falling. I want to take a different perspective from it because there's a lot of people that the mainstream and just everybody in general aren't really talking about. So I want to go at some of the people who had some of the most underrated combine performances that can see their stock rise over this next few weeks as we get into the pro day circuit. But before we get into that, my name is Aaron Duncan with Necessary Bluntness. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I do draft content, NFL content with film breakdowns and stuff, mainly talking about the Panthers. But I've been having a good old time doing this draft content for the whole league because this is the most exciting time for me. I can't lie. As a person that played ball back in the day, the combine, I'm a workout warrior. I love getting into this type of stuff, seeing these type of drills, seeing these guys do this stuff. I know that the film trumps everything and stuff like that. And the combine is really used as a tool to either be like, hey, let me confirm what I saw on film, or hey, maybe I need to go back and take a second look. And there's a bunch of guys that I added to my list over this weekend. So I'm going to go day by day and position group by position group and name one guy from each group that had an underrated day. And the first one, I want to start with day one, and that's the edge rushers. I'm going to go with Marshawn Nealon, the edge from Western Michigan. Now, Marshawn Nealon, he had a pretty solid day. He didn't have the most overwhelming testing numbers, but the name of his game on tape is just a high motor, aggressive, strong-handed individual. I thought he showed great athleticism. I thought he looked very, very comfortable and smooth going through the field work as well. Showed great bend and flexibility going around some of those bags as well. This is a guy that I think can really push himself into being definitely on the front part of day two of the draft. I know he's not going to push it to that first round just because I think that ceiling is a little bit low for athleticism, but I think he still has that rough ball of clay with the high motor, high amount of effort. He can stand up. People may want to put him down in a 4-3 defense just because of his size and ruggedness, but I still think that him being standing up and showing that this athleticism that he showed at the combine, I think it really bodes well for him, and I definitely see him pushing for that early part of day two in terms of the draft pick. Next up for the linebacker that I think had an underrated performance, and he's an underrated player. I just think his performance, and that's going to be Edgerrin Cooper, who's most people's linebacker one. I know Peyton Wilson really took things over when he ran that 4-4-3, but I thought Edgerrin Cooper did everything he needed to do to really lock up his position to be LB1, especially off-ball linebacker LB1 from Texas A&M. This guy, his testing numbers were off the charts, finished with an official 4.51 on the field. Some of his lateral movement was a little bit awkward and stiff at times, but I thought through the bag drills, he was pretty much flawless. He went through those smooth, getting his feet up and down, showed great natural bend as well, being able to turn the corner as well on rushes and stuff. He's showing that explosive get off with that 1.54 10-yard dash. I think this guy is going to be the first linebacker off the board. I know Peyton Wilson is everybody's darling. He probably had the better day overall, but I think what Edgerrin Cooper did for his draft position and where he is as on the rankings, I think you couldn't have done any better than he did as far as just really solidifying where you are and keeping these guys and letting them know that, hey, I'm still LB1. I know that everybody got maybe a little bit better numbers, but 4.51 is definitely nothing to sneeze at for an off-ball linebacker. I think the intensity that he plays with, I think the explosive ability that he plays with, and the speed is just going to be too hard for anybody to pass up. I know the linebacker position has been devalued over some days, so he's probably going to be a second-round pick. In my eyes, maybe he'll sneak into the first, or depending on how some people feel about it, but I still think Edgerrin Cooper will be the first linebacker off the board. So moving on to day two with the defensive backs and tight ends, of course. I think the tight end that really had a great performance, and it really wasn't underrated because these guys always do it big, and it's Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State. Now, I don't know what's going on at Penn State, man, because these dudes, no matter who it is, every year, no matter the player, whether they turn out to be great players or not in the league, they destroy the combine. Now, I personally thought it was just something that was going on during COVID at their pro day where they were just putting up these crazy numbers because teams were trying to do their own players favors. But Theo Johnson literally destroyed the combine. I mean, he's had a hell of an offseason for this tight end group that's pretty much underwhelming overall compared to last year. But I thought he did everything he needed to do to show the athleticism at 6'6", 259 pounds. This guy is a load. I mean, for Christ's sake, the guy had the second fastest 40 time out of this group, running a 4.57, having a 39.5-inch vert at 6'6" with 33-inch arms. This guy has a ridiculous frame, and with tight end position, it's so weird, man. Like, the tight end position is so forgotten, in my opinion, in college football. It's just so hard. You really have to just gamble on traits and project what you think these guys are going to be and find a role for them, of course. Like I said, last year's class was super loaded, so you're really going to have to do your homework this this year, I think Theo Johnson really put on for himself. And I think he's still going to be early day 3, in my opinion, just because this tight end group is just so underwhelming overall. And this receiver group is very highly regarded. But I thought that he had an underrated performance overall because there were some guys like Ben Sinnott who really destroyed the combine as well. But I think Theo Johnson cannot be forgotten after coupling what he did at the Senior Bowl and with what he did at the combine. This guy's having a great offseason. I think his stock is going to continue to rise. Like I said, early day 3 is what I'm thinking for Theo Johnson. But I'm really excited to see what this guy can do on the next level because the numbers are just off the charts. Again, 6'6", 259 pounds, almost a 40-inch vert with a 4.57 40-yard dash. That's crazy. That is crazy. So Theo Johnson, man, you have my respect. So for the DB group, I have to go with safety from the University of Utah, Cole Bishop. Now, Cole Bishop is 6'2", 209 pounds, and I thought this guy had an overall phenomenal day. He looked very smooth and comfortable in all the drills and field work. And when it comes to DBs, that's what you want to see. You want to see them not look stiff and clunky when they're flipping their hips. You want to see them catch the ball pretty smooth and look comfortable doing that. And Cole Bishop fits the bill. His play style is going to be near the box, very aggressive, making tackles like that. And I think his athleticism really was on display there. He ran a 4.45 to really show that high motor and high energy that he plays with translates to a 40-yard dash with straight line speed. Put him at that robber position in the middle of the field and just let him lurk in the middle and just let him run and go get it. That's the type of player he is, and he's pretty much fearless in terms of running and making tackles. And with this safety group not really having a clear-cut top guy, I thought he really did good for himself, especially with guys like Cameron Kitchens really having a weak day overall with the slow 40-yard dash. Cole Bishop is as steady as they come. I think people are going to be able to find a role for him on the next level, and I just think with the athleticism that he put together with that nice 6'2", 206 frame, I think overall Cole Bishop, really underrated player. I think he's going to be a solid pro. So let's move on to day 3, the wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks. So let's start with the quarterback. I thought Michael Penix had a phenomenal day throwing the ball as well. Didn't really test as far as the athletic scores, but after not playing in the Senior Bowl and for some reason, he was very hypocritical in his press conference talking about, I'm throwing at the combine because I don't want to miss a chance to compete. You didn't compete in the Senior Bowl. I understand why you didn't because of injuries, but still, you don't go back and say that after you axe out of the Senior Bowl because of injury. Regardless, he looked very efficient. I didn't really see any bad throws from him in that intermediate game, throwing outside the numbers and across the middle. That's where his bread is going to be butter as well. He also has that lovely deep ball, and it's always cool to see dudes with a left hand throw the football. So I thought he really put on a good showing after missing out on the Senior Bowl. I think Michael Penix is really going to be able to go to a good situation where he can sit, not really have to compete right away, get a couple years under his belt. I think he can be a high-level distributor of the football, point guard like more so than not. But with the guy that's kind of older in age, I think he still needs to marinate a little bit on the bench. But I still think that this guy did well for himself to up his stock in terms of the field drills from the combine. And so the wide receiver from day 3 of the on-field drills that I think is really underrated is, I'm going to stick with a teammate of Michael Penix, and that's Jalen Polk. Now, Jalen Polk wasn't super knock your socks off in terms of his testing numbers. He only ran in the 4.5s with his 40, but I thought the field work was impeccable. With a lot of these guys, they tested very well, but you can see a lot of these guys aren't used to running a lot of the route tree, and they look kind of clunky in and out of breaks at times. The guys that really did it well. And I think Jalen Polk pretty much field work could be put up there with anybody in terms of just smooth, flawless, comfortable running every route, comfortable making the cuts for 90 degrees on curls, all the go balls. This guy did well on the gauntlet as well. I thought Jalen Polk really is probably overlooked, probably end up being maybe even day 3 pick. Who knows in this loaded receiver class, but I think people still want to see if he's a product of that just high potent Washington offense and the other weapons that were around him, or that he can actually stick it on his own. But I thought he looked like as technically sound as you can be as far as from a receiver there. I think he can be a competitive guy on the bottom part of a receiver group, maybe a receiver 4 that can make some flash plays ever so often. I really like what Jalen Polk did, regardless how he projects to the next level. What he did this weekend in Indianapolis, really stuck out to me, and I thought that he had a great day. And for the running backs, again, this is a big name, not an underrated name, but an underrated performance. And I thought that was Trey Benson, running back from Florida State. It's pretty much going to come down to him running that 4.39 in the 40-yard dash. Now, on the sports books, he was projected to run that, and I thought that was preposterous. I thought he would be mid 4.4s, maybe high 4.4s, would still be a very solid time for a guy that's like, what, 215, 219 pounds, something like that. I don't know where he's at, somewhere up there. But this guy is tall. You see him on the field. He has that speed, but some people underrate it because he takes those short, quicker, choppy steps for a guy his size, and he's explosive, but not overly explosive with that second gear. But I think that 4.39 pretty much helped reassure what the GPS data has said on film for him, what the run show has, some of his breakaway runs that he has. I think that he has a chance to be running back one. Him and Marshawn Lloyd were kind of going at it in terms of their testing numbers and the drills and how they look. I thought that Trey Benson, pretty much, who was kind of battling for that RB1, RB2 spot, I think he did a little bit more to tip the scales in his favor to make sure that he could be that first running back off the board. Now, he has low mileage and stuff in college, so if you put him in the right system with the all-around skill set of catching the football that he has, along with the running and the power and the speed, I think that this guy did very well for himself to show that, hey, I can be a capable back in the right system. I don't think any of these guys will go day one, of course, but I think he'll be one of the first ones off the board, if not the first one off the board in day two in terms of running back. So shout out to Trey Benson for the performance that he did. And last but not least, the big boys from day 4, and underrated performance, I probably have to say, is Cooper Beebe. Now, Cooper Beebe, he's like a short ball of like aggressive. He's just nasty overall, just a short, stocky, like a refrigerator out there. And I think athleticism was a big question for him. So why I think he had an underrated performance is because he showed up at 322 pounds. The questions about him was, can this dude actually move? Is he too stiff? He has short arms. Is he athletic enough to be in open field? Is he going to get destroyed by bull rushers because his length? Like, there were so many questions about him, and his arms did measure in rather short, but I thought he showed with a 1.76 10-yard dash that he has a solid get off and is quick out of his stance. Like I said, this is one of the questions for him because it takes him a little bit to get going on tape in terms of pulling and getting out that stance. But once he gets rolling, he's able to knock guys around. But I thought he looked very efficient and smooth in drills. And like I said, to put the metrics with the 1.76 behind it with a 10-yard dash to show he has a nice little burst coming out that stance and a quick get off, I think that he did well for himself, and I think that part about it is underrated. The fact that he answered one of the biggest questions about him for the most part out there was probably the most underrated part about Cooper Beebe's performance. You guys let me know down below in the comments, who did I miss as the most underrated performers of the weekend? Like I said, we know some of the big names. The Worthy ran the 4.21. We know that type of energy that happened with those big guys that make the big splash, but who was a guy that you saw was pretty much very good out there that nobody's really talking about? I want to get you guys thoughts. Let's start a dialogue down below in the comments. But without further ado, my name is Aaron Duncan, signing off for the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.